We'll call this meeting of the Craven County Board of Commissioners regular session for Monday, April 19th, 2021 to order. Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Liner?
Here.
Commissioner Mark?
Here.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner Mitchell?
Here.
Vice Chairman Bucher?
Here.
Chairman Jones?
Here. If you will, please let's stand as we salute and pledge to our flag, and then we will have the prayer afterwards. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God in heaven, we pray to you today on behalf of our nation's lawmakers and for the citizens they represent. We pray that you grant them a spirit of wisdom, insight, and cooperation. We pray that you help them to serve this country in its best interest. We pray that we learn to love one another as citizens so that we might have peace and justice tempered with mercy. Thank you for the freedom that we have in this nation. Thank you for those who have fought and died defending our country. Thank you for the protection and provision you have placed over us as your blessings. May your will be done as we seek to follow your examples in humble imitation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Commissioners, there is an addition that I have for the agenda this morning, and it would be a presentation from the Craven Pamlico Reentry Council for the James City Highway Construction Academy. I'd like to ask that it would be added as 2B. We would make the Juvenile Prevention Council budget presentation as 2A. Are there any other additions to the agenda this morning? Hear none. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hear none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next is the consent agenda. You have there before you the regular session minutes of April the 5th, the tax releases and refunds, and also please take note of a proclamation designating the month of April 2021 as the month of the military child. Are there any items to pull from the consent agenda? Hear none. Do I have a motion that we accept as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hear none. Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bucher?
Yes.
Chairman Jones?
Yes. This time we're honored to have with us the chairman of the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, and as the JCPC will present their budget this morning. Good morning, Ms. Dacey.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be with you. I think this will be short and sweet. As you'll see from our numbers, we've got the same budget we've had this current fiscal year, and I'm asking you to approve essentially the same division of those funds as we've had this fiscal year. Obviously, this past year has not been a normal year for our programs. It has been one where, of course, our kids have not had regular school attendance, and so the majority of our referrals to our programs do come from our school resource officers. So with those numbers significantly impacted, we've not had the normal utilization of our programs. So we felt it was important to really keep our numbers in place, hoping that some of the programs that are newer will have an opportunity as school gets back into session to get normal utilization of their programs back in place. But as you can see from the materials that I included in your packet, we have had continued utilization of the program at the Volt Center, for instance, which has never really closed. They've had to shut down here and there. So we've been really pleased that we've continued to have students in that program who have been able to not only get training, but some of whom have moved on to get some jobs. And so we're really pleased with that program. And all of our programs have continued functioning despite COVID protocols and a reluctance in a lot of communities to have parents meet in person, have students meet in person with our programs. So programs have been adapting to that and meeting with kids virtually. So it's been a challenge for our programs, but I think they've met the challenge incredibly well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, Commissioners, questions for Ms. Dacey? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept?
So moved. So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll for us.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Liner,
Yes.
Commissioner Mark,
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Booker,
Yes.
Chairman Jones.
Yes, thank you. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you being here and for
Thank
what you do.
Thank you. You all have a great day.
Same to you. All right, at this time, we're honored to have with us Mr. Greg Singleton. And we have some others with us. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, Mr. Singleton.
Good morning. Good morning. I want to thank each of you for allowing us this opportunity and platform to share what's going on in the beautiful city of James City. Commissioner Smith, welcome to the Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Jones, thank you for this opportunity in paving this path. I'm going to quickly turn this over to Mr. James Boyd, which is a member of the James City Community Organization. Following that, you will hear from members of the North Carolina Department of Transportation, following by me with the layout of the James City Highway Academy. Mr. Boyd.
Good morning, Mr. Boyd, better known as Smoke.
Good morning. I guess everybody already know me. That boss over there. We're not going to try to keep you long. We want to just kind of bring you up to speed of what kind of activity we have going over in James City. And Commissioner Butcher, we've already had a little bit of dialogue about it, and now we brought some heavy hitters with us now to let you know just how serious we are about this academy that we're putting together in this whole project that we're getting started with DOT. So being that I'm from the community there, and this is where I grew up and as the bridge stuff started coming in, we felt the need of being able to put something like this together to actually help some people out. So these guys, Vanessa up here, she will be able to explain some things a little bit more, and they're leading up to Greg, so to get y'all to know where we're at, not to try to hold your whole meeting up. So let's start off with Vanessa first.
Excuse me.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you. I am from the North Carolina Department of Transportation on-the-job training program in the Office of Civil Rights, and my name is Vanessa Robertson-Powell. I forgot to put that first. But this morning, I want to introduce you to Highway Construction Trade Academies. We have them in all regions across the state, and the James City Highway Construction Trade Academy is going to be the first one in the coastal area. And what these Highway Construction Trade Academies do, they present training opportunities to socioeconomically disadvantaged persons, persons who are disabled, favorite veterans, as they call them, and also for Tier 1 counties, they offer planning and programs to help them get jobs. Before we leave, Camille Little, my coworker, is going to tell you about the reason for these trade academies. But one of the reasons that we are putting a trade academy here in the New Bern area is because of the Environmental Justice Act. And so we just appreciate you all for supporting this, and for us moving forward. We will always be in this area and try our very best to support the persons that go to this academy.
Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
I keep this short and sweet. My name is Camille Little, of course, with NCDOT. And the reason we are doing this academy is to make sure we bring people from the community in the construction trades. So with that being said, I know Mr. Singleton will bring it home, but we have 4 areas that we are primarily looking for, and that is dump truck driving and equipment operators. I'll give you two. And so with that being said, it's so important that we pull our prime contractors who are on this project, which is Balfour Beatty and Branch Silva and Barnhill. Those are our three who will be working on this project. It'll be very important to bring in our DBEs also. That being said, our job is to connect the project and hiring and jobs. So once they complete, they'll be starting entry-level journeymen in highway construction. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
As they say, I'm going to bring it on home. I'm known for being very transparent. And when I was asked to participate in this, I didn't want to. Not because it wasn't the right thing to do, I just didn't know if I had the time. And you know, when you put your work and your name to something, it's imperative that you follow it all the way through. But God is good, and He helped me to manage my time to be able to assist in this project. The major thing that attracted me to this project is because 78% of people that are qualified for various jobs don't get it. 78%. Why? One, they don't know how to interview for it. Two, they don't possess the credentials in order to get a job. I know a mechanic that could tear an engine down, build it right back up, but can he get that job at Ford without that credential? The answer is no. So this academy really provided the needed credentials that is needed to compete. This does not mean that it's an automatic, but you will get the attention to be able to have the needed conversations to be able to compete for state jobs or with those contractors, just like J.T. Wooten's and those of the like. So when I got on board, the good commissioner came out, and I just laid it out on the line, and they realized there was a lot of areas that needed to be filled. So this academy will consist of its first day and its first week will embody an orientation to ensure that they're comfortable in knowing how it's going to lay out for the rest of the next 6 weeks. I mind you, some are unemployed, underemployed, and this program was initially targeted for those returning from prison and jail, reentry counsel. So they will have their first 2 days will be of assessments. It's imperative that we're not just asking company to hire someone, but we need to know where those individuals sit as it relates to the areas of reading, language, math, and those areas will be assessed. And Craven Community College will be providing that level of training. Then we're going to walk right into interest. How many people have you known get a job and realize, I don't like this job? Did they get hooked up? That's what we use to say, I know somebody that's hiring and we just fulfill that position. Well, we hurt businesses badly when we do that. So we want to make sure that these individuals that have signed up for this academy have selected a field of their interest. Then they will go back into it in employability skills, making sure they understand the importance of how to apply for a job online in the 21st century. If you've applied for a job recently, you know if you do not have some type of technology in your background, it's a great challenge. And a great percentage of people don't apply because of that. We're going to make sure that skill is there. Then math as it relates to trades. Can you read a ruler? And we're also blessed to have Mr. Craig Allen that's going to provide that level of training. Then they will have their OSHA 10 hazardous training. The list goes on that will be in the safety area of being a construction worker. They will have their CDL orientation as well as CPR. They will receive the valid credentials that they could pull out and say, I am certified OSHA 10. I am certified as a CPR. In the last week, we're going to go all the way back around to upgrade their resumes and cover letters and make sure their mock interview skills are in place. And the last day will be on June 10th. It will be a graduation that would take place. The James City organization will oversee that. To make sure that we're bringing our best foot forward, each instructor will do a report card on each of those students. I put this report card together because, as you know, I work in workforce development, and when I talk to businesses, the main thing, the three things they ask for is, can you make sure they show up on time? 2, when they show up, ensure that they are ready to work. And 3, are they participating? That's what we want to know from our students. Are they showing up on time? When they show up, are they ready? And 3, are they participating? We have already received 30 students that have signed up for this program already. And we can only, due to the pandemic, we can only seat a max out of 20 in social distancing. We had anticipated if we got 12 signed up, that would be a blessing. But we did our marketing right through Craven Community College, the podcast. We put flyers out and connected with a number of our sitting partners. NC Works is a part of this because let's be realistic. All will not get picked up. But we want to ensure that we have a plan that with these credentials that they now possess, that they are far more marketable in the workforce. And Mr. Brandon Lee just came in. You know, you wonder how certain things come into fruition. Like, how did they get this opportunity? Who was the voice for James City to ensure that this happened? And I think Brandon, being what they call a homeboy, was the one to bring this into its full fruition. So this academy will start on May 3rd. It will conclude on June 10th. And they have a population enough to really start this right over again. We don't want to keep a lot of lax in between one cohort to the other because you can lose momentum that way. So while we have an interest population, I am more than confident that this organization will keep this going. Last but not least, before bringing Brandon on, I would be remiss if I did not plug, we have a resource fair going on in Vanceboro. I'm excited about it. I know, it's Wednesday. It's this Wednesday where it will be a handshake with Craven Community College and the Craven Pamlico Reentry Council as a full partnership. I thank you, and I pass this over to Brandon as I conclude. Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning?
Good morning.
My name is Brandon Lee. I work for the North Carolina Department of Transportation, the Office of Civil Rights. I also am here with my teammates, Ms. Vanessa Powell and Ms. Camille Little. They are also with the Office of Civil Rights with North Carolina Department of Transportation. So I wanted to speak with you very briefly about why we are here. We're here to make an impact in the community that I am very near and dear to my heart. I grew up in James City. My family is in James City. So I am the homeboy from James City. I'm happy to be here to speak with you because it's so important that we have this Highway Construction Trade Academy. It is good for the community. It is good for Craven County. It's good for New Bern. It's something that we want to have a spotlight on the community because that area has been, shall we say, impacted negatively by construction and the lack of opportunity in that area. We realize it is a Tier 1 area in North Carolina. But with North Carolina Department of Transportation and the Office of Civil Rights, we want to make a difference. And the Highway Construction Trade Academy is what we're here to do. This is our specialty, and that's the way we want to impact James City. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions or anything, but I just wanted to go ahead and state those few points while I'm here.
Questions from the board? Commissioner Booker, you represent this area. You got any comments?
Yeah, my comment would just be that I attended the initial meeting, and you know, I don't know that we think about this, and it was brought out at that meeting. We've lost in James City just because of this road project, we've already lost a number of jobs. McDonald's closed. The convenience store in front of McDonald's closed. Waffle House closed. There are several other businesses that have closed that maybe have moved. I can think of 2 or 3. But there will be more closures that will impact people who, probably a lot of them live in James City, and they were working.
Right.
So I'm excited about the fact that we are going to give, hopefully, a number of people an opportunity to, number one, maybe break out of the entry-level minimum wage kind of employment and move into a career that can allow them to advance and to make living wage and to have maybe more fun than what they had working behind the counter at McDonald's. So I'm not knocking those jobs. Those are good starting jobs. Most of us had those when we were young.
Absolutely.
But it's great. I was impressed. You know, of course, Greg was dazzling as he was at the board walking us through the process of how this is going to work. And it's not a simple thing. I mean, the instructors have to be there, the students have to be there, the curriculum has to be put together, or has been put together, I'm sure, from the state. But it's a great deal, and I'm excited about it. So thank you, folks from DOT, Smoke, thank you. And we're going to stay in touch as we go through this thing. And I hope, Greg, that we can start a second one as soon as the first one's over. That would be great. If we can get 30, 40 people through this, not all of them are going to stick. I'm
Right.
sure you experience that, right?
We realize that. Yes.
You start out with 20, and the next week you got 18, and that's just the way it is.
Correct.
But hopefully we'll get a good core of people that get through this that can then go to work working in this field. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
How are y'all going to connect the graduates of the academy with the construction firms that are looking to hire them?
So that's a good question. So what we plan on doing, we already have relationships with a lot of contractors in the area. We also have disadvantaged business enterprise firms known as DBE, minority firms in the area. So what we anticipated is the construction that's going on in James City, the project is 3 or 5 years. So with the relationships that we have with the construction people in the area, we plan on funneling, making a pipeline of students that will go to the contractors as well. So contractors know that they need employees, and employees have to be available through the Highway Construction Trade Academy.
So y'all going to broker it?
Correct.
Thank you.
And we've also connected with NC Works, who have a plethora of companies that is looking for that skill set. So it's not that direction, that direction.
And to help them to get those jobs and keep those jobs, we have programs such as helping with daycare, housing, transportation. So therefore, we're trying to break barriers that they have for employment, because if you get a job and you don't have transportation to get to it, what are you going to do? So that's the kind of thing that we're going to be trying to do for them, and that's the kind of thing that NCDOT has funding for through federal highways. And what we're going to be asking the community for is who drives a bus, who has a taxi, who can become a vendor that will be able to help us. We're not asking for it for free. We're just asking who can do that and who will be reliable for our people that come out of our construction trades academies. And I'm going to shut up because I get on the
Jason, one last thing. Greg made the comment, I think he said, there are 3 things that we teach them. You know, I've always said, I've always had that simplified 2. Number 1, show up on time.
Right.
And do what you're told.
Right.
If you do those 2 things, you're going to probably be okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to keep that job. So that's core stuff that they need to learn. So I'm sure that'll be right at the beginning.
For sure.
Anything else from the commissioners? If not, we thank y'all for taking your time to be here today and for
Thank
this
you.
presentation. Commissioner Liner?
We have Craig stay, Mr. Singleton stay.
Yes, yes. Yes, Mr. Singleton, if you will stay just a minute, I think Commissioner Liner might have a question for you. But thank you, thank each of you for being here. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Not try to put you on the spot, Commissioner Liner.
Yeah, where are you standing with your grant?
Oh, I'm glad we asked. That signing that I talked about that's going to take place Wednesday, the college has received the RFP from the state, effective date March 8th. So they're allowing it to walk back because of their tardiness. Anything that we invoice March 8th forward, we'll be able to do reimbursement for. As a matter of fact, just had a meeting yesterday with Gary Boucher and Jim Millard with the finance department to put all those things in motion. We've already brought the people on board. That's why I was so concerned about taking on this project with all that was taking place. So we are funded, and I wanted to come to this board and get an opportunity to thank you. The hardship, it rolls downhill. The hardship that the state put us under, we put the community under, y'all came through for us. You came through for people that would not have been able to receive services any other way whatsoever. And I thank the good county manager, Jack, and thank you for that. So the college will be getting in touch with Jack to work out what can go back that was brought forward by this board of commissioners. Thank you so much for that.
Commissioner Liner?
One last question, for me anyway.
Yes, sir.
What are you projecting, or what are you seeing with the early release program that the governor has done? How are we handling that?
Yes, we have been receiving that population anyway. When COVID hit, they had already activated a plan to start doing early release. That 3,500 was a population that was going to be released with the exiting date already or already a nonviolent offender. So that was going to happen. And the ramp up of the amount of release had already taken place when COVID hit because of the hot spots. So we had already geared up our partnership because of our alliances with RCS and those. We were prepared. So we was able to find placing for the ones that came back to Craven. Now, we did have to act as watchdogs, as those that did not originate from Craven County. That's what the greatest challenge is. Not saying that we don't welcome them all, but we have to take care of home base first because of the limited funding. I hope that answered the question, good Commissioner.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Singleton? Not, we thank you, sir, for what you do. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate you.
All right, next we have with us Mr. Clayton Gaskins, Chair of the our Social Services, our Craven Aging Planning Board. Thank you, sir, for being here this morning.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Nan sent you all the packet last week. I want to call your attention to the chart. That's the page I'm going to be speaking from. You've all got that in front of you. This is actually at the very top of it. It is titled wrong. This should be fiscal year 2021. And I just noticed that when I was looking over it out in the hall. So I was here in January for a budget amendment, and here I am again for another budget amendment. We're finding ourselves with excess of funds, and we want to keep those funds, the HCCBG funds, in Craven County. So Commissioner Liner sits on this board with us, and we have had several called meetings February and March to look at reallocating. So the middle block is the current allocation, which I presented back in January and was approved at that time. The next column, which at the top begins $20,189 for Havelock Senior Services, is what we're recommending, and then the final block is the one I was just going to speak to. Shows the increase or decrease for each provider. So if we start at the top there, Havelock Senior Services has given up $5,000. Ginger felt like they had other funds and did not need that, so they could give that back. Carts only needed $4,000 to finish out this fiscal year, so they gave back $21,561. On in-home aid, we gave them $15,000 of this money that is being proposed to reallocate to be able to provide more services to folks in need in the county. Just beneath that, Congregate Meals, which is our senior center here in New Bern, gave back $2,705. And then we increased below that the home delivered, which is the shelf-stable meals, which was a way we could utilize those funds, purchase meals that could be home delivered. So we gave them 30, or recommended to give them 3546. And then the very last one, Senior Companion. So you all may remember there was a change in leadership there back in the fall. There was an interim director, and they surrendered half of their budget when I presented here in January. And then unbeknownst to the current director, there were charges that were never put into the ARMS system, which is what they use for billing. So we had a long discussion about this over the phone during the last meeting, and we're recommending to give them back $9,720 to cover those services that had not been entered and the current director was unaware of. So it doesn't change the bottom line. It's still $519,108. We're just trying to reallocate, as I said, and keep those funds within providers and services where it can be spent here in the county.
All right, Commissioner Liner?
Just keep in mind, this is the second time that Clayton has been here, and it's not going to be the last. Keep in mind, we haven't spent all of our money. Clayton is trying his best to make sure that all this money stays in Craven County. Each one of these figures that you see here, each one of the department heads has approved verbatim, in person, to Clayton and myself at our meetings and everything else. They've all given us back on that. And then keep in mind also, and the reason why we're having to spread it, both of the Congress, or both of the senior centers got money from the CARES Act and got money from Family First. And they have more leeway on how they can spend that money than what they can do with the community block grant money. So we're trying to use all of the money and keep it going and everything else. So this is Clayton, if I'm speaking out of turn, you let me know, but I think this is change number 2. I think you're going to see probably change number 3.
Maybe back in May.
Yeah, because some of these people are still not going to be able to spend all of their money, and we're trying to give it in the other departments who's moving ahead a little bit differently.
And what will happen if there is any excess money, those funds will be shifted to other counties in our region. So as I said, our goal as a board is to try to move those funds around and keep them here in Craven County to benefit our residents here.
All right, County Manager Clayton, I just want for clarification, in the agenda packet that we had, it was a budget amendment for $1,871. This new document we have before us this morning that was there, what Clayton's saying is no change in the amount. So we're not going to go with the one that's in the agenda packet.
There shouldn't have been a change on the bottom line. We're just moving funds around.
I understand, Dan, this was just a larger version of what was in the book, is that correct?
Correct.
Should not be any change.
It's just the allocations have changed.
But no, if you look at attachment 3, the budget amendment, it has a budget amendment for $1,871.
That's what was sent to me.
And Kimberly signed it on March 31.
Commissioner Jones, could you hold up the page you're
Right here. Yeah.
It's right here.
I've got it right here.
Oh, well, okay.
Shifting of internal programs that require
Do you want to go to the podium and say
Sure.
that? Mr. Chairman, maybe the finance officer could
Okay.
help you with this one.
Not trying to confuse it, but
Sir, when it was being submitted, we reviewed it with Jeff Merritt and the group over at DSS. And some of these programs that require a match, when funding was moved back into those areas, we kind of had to reestablish those matches. So that's what the some of the entries on this budget amendment represent.
All right, so the $1,871 is going to come out of fund balance? Is that where it's coming?
Yes, sir.
Okay, to match.
Yeah, that would be, I think it's 10% match.
For the DSS services,
Yes.
we moved 15,000 to in-home.
That's correct.
Okay, yes.
Those are a required local match.
All right. We are going to go by what was in the agenda packet. What was in your agenda packet, the budget amendment, is what we will be voting on this morning.
Correct.
Okay. No problem, no problem. Great presentation.
As Nan said, we did have this one enlarged, I believe on Thursday, because it was easier for folks to see.
Right. Okay, so the motion this morning would be for a budget amendment of $1,871 to come out of fund balance. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Everybody understand what we're doing? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Booker?
Yes.
Chairman Jones?
Yes. Clayton, while you're here, first, thank you for all you do with Craven Aging, but hospice, how's things going there?
Hospice is going pretty good. Our census has dropped. The referrals have kind of backed off. But we've got our positions refilled. We've got a nurse that started a couple weeks ago, and I've got another one coming in a couple weeks. So, but we're doing pretty good.
Good.
Still can't get into the hospital to see folks. They're really not allowing us over that way yet to market, so to speak. But we're holding our own, I think.
Okay. All right.
The year with a good profit.
Thank you, Clayton.
Thank you all.
Yes, we got a question.
Clayton, one last thing. I have a close friend who is, this is not related to this specifically, but is the hospice, which is Clayton is directly in charge of. I have a close friend who is in hospice care right now, and the family, it just couldn't be more appreciative and thankful for the wonderful job that your agent, I have no idea who the person is that's coming to their house, but whoever she is, they're just very thankful, and again, we hear that over and over and over, but this is one that I'm personally involved with, so again, thanks for what you do there.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be there in the position I'm in, and I'll share with you all, I've just added my grandmother on our hospice services recently, so I'm feeling it very personally right now, the love that these folks provide our county, so I'm very pleased to be part of it.
Thank you, Clayton.
Thank you.
Have a good day, buddy. All right, next is facilities. We have with us Zach and also Chad. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
And first, Zach, I want to say thank you for that new doorknob out there. I can't thank you enough.
I don't know how long it took, but.
Well, I couldn't get nothing done from the county manager, but you got it done. So you're the man.
With their funding. The Facilities Department was notified on October 5th, 2020 by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality that the Judicial Center stormwater renewal permits were due for 2 state stormwater areas at 1100 Clarks Road, Judicial Center. Due to the timeline that NCDEQ provided in the renewal letter, we immediately began to formulate a plan of action with management and the planning department. It was decided to contract with Robert Childs Engineering to evaluate the stormwater systems and submit a proposal for the items that needed to be repaired. Mr. Childs submitted his findings in a report on January 26, 2021. We reviewed and decided we would need to contract with 2 types of contractors to repair the areas Mr. Childs noted. One contractor is to be a commercial landscaping and grading contractor to remove vegetation and trees, add fill to the banks, regrade the banks, and reseed inside the repaired areas. The other contractor is to be a commercial plumber to replace the large broken outlet pipe, broken in-ground piping, and missing pipe caps. We met with numerous commercial landscaping contractors over a period of 3 to 4 weeks and ultimately received proposals from 3. The low bid proposal came from Pro Lawn and Landscaping at a cost of $16,680. Due to our long-standing relationship with Caton Plumbing and the unknowns of what needs to be repaired underground, we met with Jimmy Caton for the plumbing repairs. He submitted a not-to-exceed cost of $15,000. If approved, we intend to issue purchase orders immediately to both contractors and have them work together to repair all items listed on Mr. Childs' report. We have submitted our permit renewals, the check, and Mr. Childs' report on March 19th, 2021, at the request of Mr. Roger Thorpe with NCDEQ. This allowed us to be compliant by the deadline of March 21, 2021, with the idea that we would repair all of the items on Mr. Childs' report within a timely manner. Staff is requesting approval of a budget amendment shown in Attachment 4 in the amount of $32,690 to contract with Prolawn and Landscaping and Caton Plumbing to bring the stormwater systems at the Judicial Center up to code per state regulations. And Mr. Thorpe has responded and received our renewal and the check and said they would do an inspection whenever we contacted them. That's what we've talked with Chad about.
Okay, Chad, you got anything to offer?
No, I think if we get the contractors out there and make the repairs, then get Mr. Childs out there to certify the repairs, submit it to the state, then the permit should be renewed with no problem.
Okay, questions from the board? Commissioner Liner.
How often is this pond inspected?
It was every 10 years, and now it's moved up to every 8. And that's kind of why we were caught off guard a little bit with this one.
I mean, is there anything that we can do? I mean,
We now have in the budget narrative, and Jack and the management team have seen that, there's no funding, but it's a narrative in there for us to remind us each year we need to evaluate prior to budget the 3 or 4 we have within the county.
Yeah, to go this much damage over this period of time with nobody looking at it, I mean, it's really not that much for the size of what we got out there, but we should have some type of inspection program ourselves.
Yes, sir.
To keep this up and going without.
We had some, and I think Zach and Chad, you may have to help me, but there were some original construction issues that we're also dealing with. We've had some erosion problems over time. If you look at some of those pictures, you can see the banks. We think it's
very clear.
None of us were here when this was built, but we think some of the original construction may have been flawed in ways. We never got a good drainage field out there. So we hope to correct all that here, and you'll never have to spend this kind of money. It's going to be small maintenance items each year.
They had planted, it's odd. I think some of the regulations have changed. They had planted saplings around these banks for erosion control, and now they've grown to 20-foot trees, and they're saying, we don't need that. So that's a change that we're dealing with here as well.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? I do. You're talking about a general maintenance. I mean, would that be keeping the trees and keeping it mowed on a yearly basis now?
So we do mowing now. It's like Jack has said and Chad has said, the erosion is really bad out there. It's a very clay-like soil. So we intend to put sod back in place with a netting below that to help that erosion control. But we're not going to have saplings in place. It'll just be grass banks.
And the key is getting a 3-to-1 slope, so
Yep.
you don't have a lot of velocity on your runoff. And getting that slope will make it easier to maintain also.
Another question, do we have other, I can't even think of the word, stormwater ponds like this across the county?
The convention center has one, and that was renewed during the project this past year. So we have that on our radar, and I'm confirming for the health department. There's a pond system there at Health and DSS, but it's not in the 8 years, almost 9 years I've been here, that's not come up. So I'm anticipating it could come up very soon.
You got one at Croatan Convenience Site.
So yeah, there's one there.
And you've got,
Our office.
yep, Chad's office.
Yep, right behind. That's the one I'm talking about as well. So we've got them on our radar. We need to verify the dates of when those renewals come up, and we'll talk to Mr. Thorpe about that.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the budget amendment in the amount of $32,690. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, if you will, please call the roll.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Liner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Booker?
Yes.
Chairman Jones?
Yes, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here this morning, what you do. Next is the Water Department, the write-off of water refund receivables. We have Mr. Al Gerard and Mr. Craig Warren. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. This Holland is kind of working on me a little bit this morning, so and a little sun from yesterday, so I'm okay. I'm here today, and I've got my backup, of course. If you have any really good questions, I'm sure he'll be able to answer them better than me. But I do want to present this to you, and we do need some board action on this. Each January, the Water Department begins its annual bad debt write-off process by identifying uncollectible receivables that are older than 1 year as of December 31st. Account balances under $50 are written off, and accounts over $50 are put in a collection status, leaving them on the books for potential collection through the North Carolina Local Government Debt Set-Off Program. A review of the Water Fund's accounts receivable balance revealed that there are a number of old accounts included that exceed the collection period determined to be reasonably accepted by accounting standards. The criteria for determining uncollectible water receivables is all accounts regardless of balance are 4 years or older as of December 31st of each year. There's a total of $19,325.96 from the year 2016 that meets the uncollectible criteria as of December 31st, 2020. Going forward, it's estimated that this total will be approximately $20,000 to $25,000 annually. So we need to get this up there so if somebody wins the lottery or whatever, we can get paid.
All right, any questions first from the commissioners for, which one wants to go first? Either one.
Go ahead.
I'm a little puzzled as to how we would have 25,000. I guess my question is, do we not have a deposit system in place so that if someone doesn't pay their bill and they have $100 or $200 or $300 or $400 balance, we can use that deposit? That's my first question. My second question is, what is the North Carolina Local Government Debt Set-Off Program? Is that a collection agency that collects? If not, do we give our debts, our bad debts, to a collection agency? So, my two questions. Number one, why do we have that much of a write-off each year? That seems to me like a pretty strong number.
Let me answer the second one first. This program there is for people that have kind of disappeared. You can't find them to collect on. But if they were to come into some money, and it has to go through the court system some way, or maybe win the lottery, then we'll get our money first, if you want to call it that way. We'll get our money because we're on that registry, we're on that list. If that's, you probably know more about that than I do, if that helps.
Yeah, it's a program that we partner with the Association of County Commissioners. It's a way that all local governments can go out there and put bad debts against the outstanding bills. The Department of Revenue, at the time they file, says it files its tax return, that is where the payments are coming from. So before they send the refund to the citizen, they'll go ahead and withhold this portion of money and remit it to us.
I understand that part, that's good, but do we not use a collection agency to go after those folks?
We do not. We kind of, and unless Al, if he knows something differently, I'm not aware of us using one right now.
Is there any reason?
I think in the past we have, and then I think at one time the board wanted to kind of move away from that, I believe, but that was before I was in the position I am in now.
Is there any reason we could not turn these bad debts over to a collection agency?
I don't think there's absolutely no reason.
Okay.
I think there was, and I think Craig's right, I think the aggressiveness with which debt collectors collect at times was difficult for commissioners to manage because you're really passing it to a third party on behalf of you. So I think there was some issues, and I don't think I was even here when we stopped doing that, Craig. I think it was 10 years or more. But
so these, once they're written off, they never go away in our financial system or the billing system. They remain there. So Al and his staff can do inquiries and look up bills when a new customer comes in. That's one of the first checks that they do to see if there's an outstanding amount. So if they ever come back, they'll be, that's when we'll collect.
What we're doing in effect is we're allowing people to not pay their bills, which means the rest of us
Are paying them.
are paying it. Yeah, we're paying it by virtue of our taxes, and the people who do pay their bills are paying their water bills, and then this guy decides not to, and he leaves or whatever. I don't want to be mercenary, but I believe that there would be some merit in having the these people turned over to an agency that says, hey, just a.
Nope. Yes, sir. This conversations came up about every other year about whether these things go to debt collection or not. I think we did a report a couple of years ago. I don't know if you were here, Al, maybe when Rusty was still here. We'll be happy to dust that off and bring it back before the board. I think every time we look at it, we get to that point of do we do it or not, and that the board has to take that action. So we're happy to bring it back.
Okay.
That's something the board would like to see.
I'd like to see what that looks like.
Sure.
So just to kind of give one last little perspective on this amount of money. So we build roughly $3.8 million a year.
Exactly.
In water sales. So that 20,000 is representative of that total billings, if you were going to throw a percentage on it.
It's a very small percentage that's uncollected.
Exactly.
Is what you're trying to say, Craig.
Yeah, basically.
And a point, if I may interject, I mean, they cannot have county water with us.
That's correct.
Again, until they pay it in
Which is
full.
why we do not
Yeah.
delete their account. We just write it off so it doesn't show a big.
They cannot be a
receivable
customer.
on the financials and overstate those revenues.
All right, Commissioner Liner?
Well, I think my question's been answered. I was just concerned there's about 3 of them on here. It's over $1,000. That's, why we let it get up that high or why it got up that high without doing something. I mean, I understand. I mean, I've heard enough of these. It's getting bigger.
That's kind of like your first question, as far as your deposit is concerned. The amount of money that's put in as a deposit is really not significant as to what they can run the bill up to. In that particular case, for $1,000, that was 1 month. And with the way we collect the payments, they can be 3 months into the water bill before and not be cut off yet. So, but that's just a matter of how we get the meters read, and then we get them prepared, and then we send the bills out, and we also give them somewhat of a grace period as far as getting caught up, because they don't have to pay the total bill off. They just have to pay a percentage or whatever. And there's probably some things that can be done to clean that up some. But again, for $3.5 million worth of sales, and to have $19,000 that were uncollectible, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, it's not a high percentage of uncollectibles. It's probably less than what, 2%?
I would say it's actually less than normal
Yeah. And
in this,
year, of course,
what you did last year.
the COVID has been you wait till this time comes up in 4 years. And we did try using that block, what was that thing?
Square.
The Square.
Payment system.
And we were actually calling people up to let them know that we had a device there we could take credit cards, because we don't take credit cards. So we don't get paid at the water department with credit cards. Our people who bill can take a credit card. But there's some things that we should do or look into as far as having a machine there that you can run a credit card through when you come in to pay the water bill.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is 2021, why don't we take credit cards?
I think we do take credit cards through official payments, Al.
Right, but not at the.
It's a third-party vendor, because there's Greg, you can explain. I know it's something you've been looking into.
I know there's a percentage for charge accounts, but a lot of people, especially today, they are using less and less their checking accounts and more their credit cards.
Debit cards.
Or debit cards or whatever.
Sure.
That's.
But we do, I want to be clear, we do take credit cards and
Well,
debit cards.
I know, but trying to make using credit cards and debit cards as easy as possible seems, the fact that we're not, does not.
Well, Craig's working on it. Would you like to give us
It's not
some?
that we're not. It's just that it's a part of the rollout of the new software.
Of the whole new software.
We got it.
With it, and I understand, during COVID, people needed water to be washing germs away. I mean, this was not the time to be cutting off water when we're in a pandemic, and hand washing and sanitation is such a big issue. But, no, 20,000 or 25,000 is not that big for $3.5 million. But on the other hand, when the word gets out that it's not collected and you're essentially home free, eventually it will get bigger. I mean, the city of New Bern's been through all this. To me, we need to tighten this up some, to me.
Believe it or not, very often, they're collecting payments that are much older than this, because we don't delete those balances. We zero them out so they don't show as a receivable, but they can go back and look at the history of all the amounts, money that were owed and left unpaid. So if that person comes back in Well, they stay on that set-off. They never get off that program. If they ever file another tax return in North Carolina, if they live in the mountains, we're going to collect that. They get
Well,
it.
yeah, but if they've moved to Nevada,
Likely not.
right, that,
And that's where a collection company may provide some
And I think
assistance with that.
if we don't, again, we'll wait and see what it looks like, but if we don't give it to someone, then it doesn't get on their credit report. And once it's on their credit report, and then they go to buy something and they can't, or they get declined, now they're gonna do something about it. So just by virtue, I don't know if we do that or not. Do we file with the credit bureau when we write these off?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
There's nothing sent to them, but that would be something with the.
Something else we need to look at, because that doesn't cost anything to let the credit bureau know, hey, this person owes us. And then when they go to buy a car or buy a house, maybe in another state, it's gonna show up. So just another thing we need to take a look at.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, here none, we need a motion and a second to approve the write-off of these water refund receivables, and they will be put on file with the North Carolina Local Government Debt Set-Off Program.
Move.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Here none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you what you do.
One quickie for you, Zach and everybody, as far as the debt collection, is there some limits that we need to look at as far as what their percentage of, or what their fees would be, or is it, I mean, I'll be glad to look into it.
Well, I think we need to just know what's available. What, if you go to a collection agency, you look at a couple of them, how much do they keep? Do they keep half of it, or,
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Al.
All right, next is the Animal Control Ordinance Amendment discussion. We did defer it from our last meeting over into this meeting. And, Mr. County Attorney, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of go through what changes we have here. And
Yes, sir. Good morning. This was initiated with some discussions between the board and the Sheriff's Department earlier this year regarding the disposition of animals that the sheriff collects, I guess that's the right word, through enforcing our various animal protection ordinances. And the fundamental question was, where should those animals go? And I think the universal answer was the starting point should be the county's animal shelter, and other animal shelters would be a backup in limited circumstances. The board discussed those circumstances. We had a first draft that included, our animal shelter saying we can't take the animal for whatever reason. We're full. We're not equipped for the particular animal. And then we realized there might be other circumstances in which the sheriff would not be able to utilize the animal shelter, primarily nights, weekends, things like that. So we tweaked the initial draft to provide for those two scenarios, and also to have the Sheriff's Department notify the animal shelter in writing, including electronic email, if a animal is taken elsewhere, because we do at the end of the day have the responsibility to keep track of animals and where they go. So we amended the language. The board scheduled and held a public hearing at our last meeting. I don't believe there were any public comments. Might be mistaken on that. And the ordinance language is before you for further consideration or action, and I'll be glad to answer any questions the board may have, Mr. Chairman.
all right, questions for the county attorney or staff?
I have a
Commissioner
question. Does the state of am I correct in remembering that the state of North Carolina defines an animal, a pet, as personal property?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. I mean, I think the common law would definitely agree with that. Whether it's statutory, I'm not exactly sure this morning.
So whether it be a heifer or a dog, it is, for example, my property.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think there's some subtlety between farm and domestic.
Other questions?
Maybe.
I don't want everybody else to go first now. You got something?
I would just say that I'm not sure that we need this. I think we certainly had an issue that we've had other issues as we've tried to work these two entities with the sheriff's department and the animal shelter not being under the same roof, under the same umbrella, if you will. I went to the shelter this past week and sat down with the Jack, I guess, acting manager, is that the correct?
He is the full-time manager.
He is full-time?
Yes.
Okay, our new full-time manager, and asked him if he was comfortable that we have this problem solved. And he gave me a yes. So far, he said, in the last month or so, I'm not aware of any problems. He did mention one animal that he thought went to the humane group down the street. I don't know what the official name of that organization is. Specific instruction that all animals go to our shelter unless they can't take the animal for whatever reason. So anyway, I guess my question is, and I'm just, do we really need this ordinance? Is it something that we could put on the shelf, and if we need to pull it back out, we can always pass it later? That's just a question.
All right, any other comments?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yes, ma'am.
The reason we're having this discussion is there was a problem, and it was a real problem with it. Some people value their pets or their animals more than others, but that's not really for the county to judge. Some of these animals are extraordinarily expensive, and some are very loved and very emotionally expensive. When it comes to personal property, and that's why I asked that question, I am not into gentlemen's agreements. I want to know what the rules and the regulations are, and I want to know that somebody's following them, whether it be my car, my pet, or anything else that I own, and I think most people feel that way. I think the issue is our responsibility to our citizens over how we dispose of or protect their personal property should it come into the hands of a county entity. With it, I'm also not into redoing things twice, so putting it on the shelf until it comes back up later, to me, I think is a waste of time and effort. And I also think if it's not done by ordinance and by regulations that we as county commissioners have administrative detail over it, that there is the potential for inequities in how people are treated. If you live in Riverbend or Trent Woods, your animals might be treated differently than if they come from Duffyfield or Harlow, because they might be perceived as being more valuable or less valuable depending on where someone lives or the color of their skin. And I think that's one of the things that needs to be considered. We'd like to think everybody is always above board, but we also know that social equities actually don't work that way. So I'm sorry, I can't support letting it slide. I think it needs to be on the books, and I think it protects our citizens of whatever color or background they might have.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Liner?
I'd have to disagree with the statements made. It wasn't important because this whole board elected to move forward and have county staff work on and adopting this because we had issues. Only reason we knew of those issues because they was put out on Facebook. Now, yeah, the individuals out there is probably not going to be stupid enough to put them back out on Facebook and we'll probably never know about them again unless we get a dog picked up by us and taken to someplace else, and then we're held reliable. But I don't look at this as being against the sheriff, for the sheriff. It's an administrative change to our ordinance. It gives more guidance to people out there of what they can expect. He's to enforce it. He has nothing, on this. Sure, he gets new people. We don't know. I'd have to agree that we need to make sure that we're covering everything. When we pick up these animals, we know where they're going to. When somebody calls us, we know it's going to be at our shelter. I mean, why did we spend over $1 million to make that shelter the way it is right now, and then have the possibility an animal goes to somebody else and not to us? We're the primary source. We said we were going to take the responsibility when we increased the size of that shelter the way it is. If our people pick it up, then we should be obligated. It goes to us. And it's just covered in any directive that we have out there of how we set down our policies. That's what I say.
Thank you. Any other? Commissioner Smith?
I agree. I think that we should have an ordinance because you can have an agreement between two people. One of them leaves, the next person that comes in may not know what that agreement is, may not care what it is, and if there's nothing in writing, if there's not a stated law or regulation, they can do whatever they choose to do. But if we have an ordinance, whatever. I can't say it this morning, but if we have something in writing, then we're all on the same page, and I think that I'm not thinking that someone would want to treat somebody else's pet different, just so that the person who's doing the job understands what's to be done, and the person who is the recipient understands. I think it's better to have it in writing.
Any other comments? Several things I'd just like to add, and I respect all the commissioners for the comments that have been made. This board has spent a lot of time, invested a lot of taxpayer dollars into the animal control services, not only at the facility, but also through the sheriff's department. But I will state for the record, since we moved the Animal Protection Services Department underneath the sheriff's department, I mean, my phone has quit ringing. Now, I'm not saying that yours hasn't. I'm just saying mine has. I haven't heard the complaints and so forth. What I got out of the comments that were made, it was brought before us as a Board of Commissioners as from an individual commissioner. I think you brought it up, Commissioner Liner, which is your right, as any commissioner has, to bring anything to the floor. But never, as chairman of this board, have I had one person come to me about anything. What you may have saw on Facebook, I don't look at Facebook. I didn't see it. I had nobody come to me and complain to me about what was going on. So when you brought it before this board, that was the first time that I have heard about it, and which I have talked to the sheriff, and the sheriff, I think, was not aware himself of some things that may have been done. What I had contemplated in doing but did not do is to allow the sheriff to come today, and also representation from the animal shelter, because I think it's our job as a Board of Commissioners to hear both sides. I think there's two sides to this story, and we only have heard one side, is what I personally think. I did not do that because I don't think this is the platform for it. I think it involves personnel issues, and I don't think this is something to be done in open session, and so I didn't do that. I am a little guilty, though, today to say that I didn't reach out to both sides as I should have prior to this, but I withheld from doing that because of being a personnel issue. Commissioners, however you vote, we're going to go on and forth, but I'm not going to support this. I do not think that at this point that we have the information. I don't have the information that I have to vote in favor of it. I would rather for us to defer it to some time rather than take an official vote, but we've decided to bring it before the board, and if we go for a vote, I will vote against it. Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to defer this to another time. I'd like to hear both parties come in here and speak their opinion about what's going on.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a time to defer it?
I guess to the next day meeting.
All right, we got a motion. Have I got a second? See if it dies.
If not, let it go.
I will second it,
You're second it?
yes, because
All
I
right.
thought we had all the information.
All right, so we'll go to discussion. You have something.
Mr. Chairman, and I respect the commissioners and the issue at hand, but bringing the staff forward who was not here, I mean, there's been leadership change at the animal shelter. I think it's unfair to bring that person into this discussion who was not in charge at the time. So obviously we could have Mr. Harrelson here, but I think you lose something with the further you get away from the
Mr.
issue.
Chair, I don't quite understand this ordinance you're talking about. I'm not going to go for it.
I mean, I do think you get into a personnel issue that should probably, I think you were right, that you probably need to go into closed session to have that conversation.
All right, we do have a motion on the floor in a second. You want to hold your motion to go forward to defer it until the next meeting?
Can I?
Yes, ma'am.
Discussion point here?
Yes.
The individual who was most vehement, who did contact me, and I know at least one other commissioner about this, is no longer employed here, and that's when the problems did occur. So I don't think it's possible to get an accurate representation of both sides of the issue.
Well, if that's the case, then how can we make an informed decision at this point?
With it, well,
You know.
I can't support the motion to delay it with it.
Can we go to closed session on this?
I think you can. Mr. Grady had obviously deferred.
Yeah, if we do get into personnel matters regarding specific county employees, certainly, but a general, what I would term a legislative discussion, the wisdom of adopting the ordinance or not, that's an open session matter exclusively. And the personnel privacy rules apply to former employees as well. So the fact that maybe the person is no longer with the county is really irrelevant for purposes of protecting employment records.
So, Mr. County Attorney, if I may interject and ask you, I mean, to go into closed session, would we invite that former employee to participate? They can deny, or do y'all just relay to us what y'all know?
I think staff would relay conversations. I mean, obviously not having thought this through, this type specific, we may need some time to understand exactly how to present that issue.
So you're saying you're not prepared to do that today?
I mean, we can do as much as we can. I mean, again, I don't know what commissioner's scope of your questions are going to be going. I can tell you, I think, as much as I know about it.
Could we table the motion until the next meeting in the next closed session? I'll make if Commissioner McCabe will withdraw his motion, I will make a motion to table this issue until the 1st of May meeting and then go into closed session.
So you're going to withdraw your motion? Do you withdraw your second? Okay. So we have a motion. You've heard the motion. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on that motion? Commissioner Liner.
I just don't understand. I mean, this is an administrative change to an ordinance that we have on the table. If you're looking at, we need both sides of the story or we never had this happen. If you look at this ordinance or any ordinance that we have out there, we don't have any evidence of anything. And we pass ordinances. We don't have to verify it. It's just to clarify having an ordinance in there of what our procedures are. You know, what our procedures are, what our guidance are expected. In a sense of administrative change to any ordinance that's out there. Most of our ordinances we put out there, we don't have any background or any facts that any of it's ever happened. We're just making sure that it doesn't happen if we can control it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think it's just preventing any future problem that could arise, and it's not a big deal.
It isn't. It really isn't.
Well, I'm happy to withdraw my motion if that is the pleasure of the board. I tend to agree. If this is not an issue, why is everybody fighting it? Okay, with it, it's an administrative issue. It assures our citizens that we know where their personal property is and that we have a regulation on it.
All right, are you going to withdraw your motion?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. If this ordinance here, how would it affect someone in Harlow compared to somebody in River Bend, the animals picking up? How that work?
Mr. County
I
Attorney.
don't quite understand it.
I don't think this ordinance amendment would make a difference in how the animals are treated depending on where in the county they are picked up. Perhaps it would ensure consistency that all animals picked up in the county by the sheriff's department are going to the same place. I think the comment was, that if you don't have a rule mandating consistency, perhaps you get inconsistency throughout the county based on geography or the nature of the animal or other factors. So the amendment as proposed does not draw a distinction between different areas of the county. All areas of the county should be treated identically.
Right.
And this ensures that.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm saying, I just want to make sure that all animals get treated equally. I don't want to go to Harlow and say this animal is not doing good, yet one in James City get better treatment. I don't want that.
I don't, this has nothing to do with that.
No, here's my point, Commissioner. Let's suppose a high-dollar dog from a great big house in Trent Woods, they take extra care with it. A rescue animal, which is usually one of mine, okay, frankly, from a less advantaged area of the county, might get treated differently depending on who picks it up, okay? This says all animals go to the shelter, period.
No matter where they're from.
Period.
Yep.
Period. All animals go to the shelter, and then the shelter says where they go.
Commissioner Smith.
My question is to Commissioner Mitchell, how are they treated differently?
That people might pay more attention to, well, we would all like to think.
Would they have an option other than taking it to the shelter no matter what?
If we don't have an ordinance, yes, ma'am, they do. That's been the issue, is that some animals went to the shelter and some went to other animal rescue organizations.
Well, what happens at 1 o'clock on Sunday morning when an animal is picked up by the sheriff's department, their Animal Control Protective Services, and we had put in here, I think, that they had to have some kind of notice, written notice or whatever.
Yes, sir.
I mean, they can't get into the animal shelter. This dog has got, or cat or whatever you're trying to save, has got to be carried somewhere and get help. That's what my understanding in the past is they've carried it on either to a vet, and those services, I think, have been paid for by the Animal Protective Services through the Sheriff's Department. Am I right, County Manager?
Yes, sir.
Because they had a fund for it. Or they were carried to the Humane Society. I think that, that's my concern is yes, I'm all for having a written trail and having to know where that animal went. Because the point you made, it is still the owner's animal. But in cases such as that, I think we have folks as the Humane Society, we have other venues to take them to when we can't get to the animal shelter. And I don't see why that's can't be taken into consideration. Why it's such an issue if we do something such as that?
No, sir, I don't have an issue with that. It's Saturday morning at 1 o'clock, and they pick up the dog on the side of the road, and they take it, let's pretend, to Colonial Capital, because that's who they can get it to. That's all good. That doesn't change. To me, all this does is say, After that happens, the sheriff's department is obligated to tell the county shelter, we took this animal to the private humane society. So it still belongs to the county shelter no matter where it is. That's the missing link in here, is that it obligates that the county shelter has cognizance over the animal wherever it is.
All right, further discussion. We have a motion on the table. You
I'm
want?
gonna withdraw it.
You withdrawing your second? All right, so what's the desire of the board?
Make a motion, we pass as written.
We have a motion and a second to pass as written. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Line?
Yes.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Commissioner McKay?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Booker?
No.
Chairman Jones?
No. All right, Commissioners, next you have appointments. You have pending appointments. You see that list there. Do we have any nominations for any of those? Seeing none, under current appointments, the Adult Care Home Advisory, Miss Linda Kopp, appointed in 2018, resigned. No applicants on file, so we would definitely need to keep that in consideration. You see your upcoming terms expiring in the month of May. Are there any other appointments to be made this morning? Hearing none, we have the County Attorney's report. Mr. Eric Grady, good morning, sir.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I have one item for your consideration. It involves the disposal of county-owned real property. This parcel does not involve a tax foreclosure parcel. This is the parcel that the board preliminarily approved that is located essentially next to the convention center. And as the board may recall, it's a little strip of property that we actually did not know we owned. It is subject to various easements in favor of a private party and also the city of New Bern, and it's right next to the Harvey Mansion. We received an offer to sell this parcel for $1,000. The board approved it. We've gone through the upset bid process. There have been no upset bids, so the matter is before the board for final approval. And I do recommend the board approve it for the sales price of $1,000.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right, next, County Manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, no report today. Just to remind the board, we do have a closed session scheduled
Okay.
at the end of the meeting.
All right. Next would be Commissioner's report. Commissioner Mark.
Yes, I attended a hospital board meeting on Tuesday, and I think everybody's seen the sign out there, the heroes, and they're talking about the people that work in the hospital. Most of the people that we're getting in now, as far as COVID is concerned, are in the younger age group, under 50. And I believe the last report I got, we had 7 people that were being treated for COVID in the hospital. So we're seeing a good track going there. And also attended a TDA board meeting, which a budget was discussed and approved. And that's about it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner McKay.
I have been President, Mr. Chair.
All right. Commissioner Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number one, I appreciate the county's support for the month of the military child. With it, thank you for the proclamation. I hope everybody wore purple on April 16th. We have a new secretary of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. He is very active on our families and children that are and our veterans. So I think that's a good thing. We're going to be seeing more of these. May is the month of the military spouse with it as well. And I believe Mr. Secretary is planning on being here Saturday, May 8th as well with it. Thank you for everyone's support of the Vietnam Wall, for everyone who was down there, volunteered, and visiting it. The turnout was right about 9,000 people, which in the age of COVID is absolutely outstanding. And lastly, I met with DOT last week to talk about safety precautions of the construction in the James City area that's starting to gear up now with it. I'm not going to go into detail, but I will say we are going to benefit from the various lessons learned that were learned during the construction in Havelock of the bypass, or the flyover as they call it. And keeping the traffic moving is one of their highest priorities, and I felt much more comfortable after that. So it's looking good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Liner.
Sir, I only got one. We lost a great individual down in Havelock. He's done a great for this community over the years, and I think everybody knew Jim Castey, Purple Heart, passed away. And it's going to be a great loss for that. And again, I piggyback on E.T.'s comments on the Vietnam Wall. Great turnout, great respect, great showing down there. What's George's last name?
Halyak.
George Halyak, if you know him or see him, did a tremendous job for the last 2 years, getting this here, bringing it here, and putting all this on. We had over 300 volunteers that worked those 5 days. It was a great event, so appreciate everybody that came out and helped and visited. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith.
No.
All right. Vice Chair Booker.
Yeah, I think several of us attended the ribbon cutting Friday in James City, the ABC store. That was not a very good location. It was small. It was did not have good handicap accessibility. It now has been doubled, I guess, in size, or close to doubled, and totally remodeled. Good turnout for the ribbon cutting, and excited about the improvement. So I just wanted to, I think 3 or 4 of us were there and cut the ribbon, and it's, I'm convinced, I think one thing that I wasn't aware of, and that is that store on the weekends picks up a lot of business, particularly in the summertime, from visitors who are coming through, going to the beach. And it's easy on and easy off, and they can stop and get whatever they need or they think they need, and continue on their way. So we're picking up business, and I think this is going to improve business, picking up business from other counties, and that only benefits us, as we took in close to $1.2 million in the last year at the county level, which helps us with all the bills we have to pay. So anyway, it was a good event. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The only item I will address, the clerk sent to you the proposed budget for the Coastal Regional Solid Waste Management Authority that we shared with you. I will tell you there will be no fee increase in that. Once again, Commissioner Mark served on there for a number of years, made sure that that fee stayed the same, and it is one of the lowest in the whole state. That was referenced to the other day. If you use facilities such as that in the same size populations, the average is in the $40 per ton, where we're at the 38. 38, right. And it's like 42, I won't say, don't quote me on that, but it's in the $40 range. So we benefit greatly from that. And to also just give you a little update on the pickup, I mean, they are still working on that, of the almost 90 miles of roadways that will be picked up in this county, paid for by the Crosama Fund. So that will support us greatly in helping with some of that roadside trash. So that's good. All right. Yes, sir.
One last thing on that subject. I got a call about 2 weeks ago from a citizen in James City who asked me to see if I could do something about some beer bottles that had been dumped into the ditch. So I said, sure. So I got a couple of trash bags and headed over there. I was just gonna pick up those beer bottles and dispose of them and be done with it. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to the site and saw, I'm gonna estimate between 200 and 300 beer bottles. And I'm not talking about beer bottles like this, I'm talking about the big bottles. It was unbelievable. Someone dumped hundreds and hundreds of beer bottles in a ditch right between Old Cherry Point Road and 70, in that ditch that runs between the two, by John Deere, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
So I called Jack and said, Jack, is there something we can do? And he said, well, I'll have Stephen look at it. But before he got a chance to do that, I called the Department of Transportation, specifically
Preston.
Preston, yeah. Preston, you all remember, spoke to us at our meeting at the convention center a month ago. I gotta tell you, I went by, I told Jack, you gotta look at this, Jack. So he said he went by the next day, they were gone. In one day, the Department of Transportation got out and picked up, I'm gonna tell you, some of them were broken, it was in water, they were in the water, it was an unbelievable mess. So just a shout out to Preston and to the Department of Transportation. I mean, they jumped on it and did it in one day, so I was very pleased.
All right, anything else to bring before the Board of Commissioners before we go into closed session? All right, we will take a break in a minute. The board is requested to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318A-4 to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries and other businesses in Craven County. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand in closed session.